What's up guys, Surf and Torque here, back with another Destiny 2 video. Today's video will be pretty different than my usual builds. Usually I'll give you an idea of what the build is, what it consists of, and the overall opinion about it. Today I'm going to start off with saying I don't even know what the build is going to be about. That's because I'll be using AI to have them make a build, hopefully a good build, for my Titan for endgame content. I'll be using whatever the AI gives me, however I'll be filling any missing gaps. Before we get into it, if you enjoyed this video at any time, be sure to leave a like on the video and consider subscribing. We just reached 3,000 subs, so thank you guys for supporting. Now on to the video. Now before anybody destroys me in the comment section saying this isn't ChatGPT, yes, this is correct. I am using Bard for this. I did try using ChatGPT, but the problem was the AI doesn't realize that Lightfall is already out. Every time I mentioned Lightfall in the search bar, it always said that, oh, Lightfall isn't out yet, but this is what you can expect, blah, blah, blah. So anyways, that's why I'm using Bard, because it is an up-to-date AI service. So like I said in the intro, the goal here is to make an endgame content build for my Titan. So all we're gonna do here is type in, create a Destiny 2 endgame Titan build. Enter, and we're going to see what it comes up with. Alright, so as we can see, it spit out some stuff. Again, I'm going to be using whatever this gives me, and if there's some empty holes, I will fill them. But I will try to make it as fair as possible, not try to take advantage of it. So here it says, here is a Destiny 2 endgame Titan build that focuses on survivability and damage output. Subclass is going to be Sunbreaker, so we're going to be using Solar, of course. Aspects, we have Soul Invictus and Roaring Flames. Fragments, we have Ember of Soulless, Ember of Torches, Ember of Singeing, Ember of Beams, Ember of Beams, and Ember of Beams. Alright, so we got, this gave us 6 for some reason, but obviously we have our core 4 here. The exotic armor piece it recommends here is going to be Phoenix Cradle. I'm not going to lie to you guys, I've never once used Phoenix Cradle, ever. I've never even put them on my Titan. Weapons, it says any solar weapons. That I feel like that gives me too much of, it gives me too much to play with. I might search something else to have them force me to use something. Mods here, I can see a lot of mods that are no longer in the game. I think every mod on that list is maybe not in the game. It does say this build focuses on maintaining sunspots, blah, 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 blah. A bunch of mods that are just, you wouldn't even have together, honestly. And it just kind of shows me how to use the build here. Okay, so we got our main thing. I guess let me try to search something else here. Alright, so I searched up what weapons I should be using in this build. So far, it gave me a nice list of solar weapons, in quotations. Huckleberry, Sunshot, Thermite Grenade Launcher. Grenade launchers with chain reaction, swords, and then exotic weapons. It has armors listed. Phoenix Cradle, of course, is number 1. So I will be using Phoenix Cradle for my exotic armor slot. So I've been sitting here trying to think of other good questions to ask, and I keep asking it to try to get me better weapons or getting better mods, but it doesn't seem like it's happening. So what I will be using is, in my first slot, it doesn't recommend really anything that, at least, I shouldn't say it doesn't recommend anything. It doesn't matter if it synergizes or not. It doesn't really recommend anything that's goes with the build. So in the first slot, I'm picking a weapon. I will be going with Succession Sniper Rifle. However, for the second slot, it did recommend Sunshot, and I felt like that went pretty well with the build. At least it, kind of goes with it. And then for the heavy weapon, it did recommend a sword at the very end, and I figured I have a solar sword, so that's what I'll be using. However, I did try to get it to recommend me mods, armor mods, and every time that I type in any sort of, hey, give me some armor mods for this build, it always recommends the same ones, like Elemental Shards, Elemental Charge, High Energy Fire, Taking Charge, Melee Wellmaker, Well of Life, Well of Ordnance, Font of Might, Elemental Ordnance. Of course, all those mods are dead, but I will be trying to maybe recreate those mods or some of the effects into the build that I do make with this. Now for the rest of the video, I'm going to be going over the exact mods and everything that I used. I'll probably go through it a little bit faster than normal with less detail. However, this video was kind of just saying if AI can make me a good build or not, that'll get me through the Grandmaster of this week. Like I mentioned before, the AI chose to use the Sunbreaker Titan subclass. So of course we're on Solar here. The super ability I chose to use was going to be the Hammer of Soul super ability. That way I can throw hammers at enemies from far away. Plus it kind of just makes sense with Phoenix Cradle. Unfortunately, it didn't really give me any abilities to go through, which just kind of means that I can choose to use whatever I want here. So I chose to use the Rally Barricade for the class ability, the Strafe Lift for the movement ability, the Throwing Hammer for Solar melee ability, and then I chose to use the Firebolt Grenades, which in a Grandmaster honestly was an awful decision. Now going on to the aspects, it did tell me to use Roaring Flames here. That way my final blows with solar abilities or ignitions can increase the damage of my other abilities, and of course it stacks up to 3 times. And then the whole build kind of revolves around Soul Invictus, which is the next aspect. Solar ability final blows, Hammer of Soul impacts, and defeating scorched targets creates sunspots. Your abilities regenerate faster and your super drains more slowly while standing in a sunspot. Sunspots also apply Scorch and deal damage to targets inside, and then entering a sunspot applies Restoration. So this whole thing was built around sunspots. I will say ahead of time this was not incredibly useful in a GM unfortunately, but in the gameplay you might be able to tell that. For the fragments, the AI did choose them. For the first one we have Ember of Solace, Radiant and Restoration effects applied to you have increased duration. Ember of Torches, powered melee attacks against combatants make you and nearby allies radiant. Ember of Singeing, which your class ability recharges faster when you scorch targets. And Ember of Beams, your solar super projectiles have stronger target acquisition. This one was not incredibly useful, and also the AI told me to put it on 3 times, which obviously is not possible. To be honest, I didn't really use any artifact mods specifically for this build, and even the AI didn't mention them at all either. They did mention, of course, resilience for the stats. With that, I ended up using resilience, high discipline for the grenade ability cooldown, and then recovery just to kind of regain my lost health back as fast as possible. Now moving on to the armor mods, I'm going to go down the list of which ones the AI recommended for that slot, and then which ones I added for it. So starting off with the head, I will say the AI recommended 1 Ashes to Assets mod, which is pretty solid, but nothing else. So after that, I added another Ashes to Assets mods. That way I can gain bonus super energy on grenade kills. And then finally I added a hands-on mod, which you gain super bonus energy on melee kills. Then moving on to the arms. The AI was pretty on par with this one as well. I got Firepower mod, which your grenade final blows create orbs of power. And then finally I got Heavy Handed, your powered melee final blows create orbs of power. So the hammer is going to be pretty useful in this build, even though it is a GM. And then it did give me an open slot, which I ended up using. Focusing Strike grants class ability energy when you have caused damage with a melee attack. Now as we talk about the chess piece, unfortunately it didn't recommend me a single mod for that slot. However, I went with the classic resist mods. I went with 1 arc, 1 solar, and 1 void resist mod. That way I can reduce the incoming void, solar, and arc damage from any combatants, just giving me an overall kind of buff to my character. And then next we're going to talk about the exotic slot that the wonderful AI Bard gave to me, Phoenix Cradle. A lot of people have been saying this has been pretty useful as of recently. Maybe in lesser game content, yeah. In GMs, in my opinion, this was not very good. I will say the exotic perk here is going to be Beacons of Empowerment. Soul Invictus lasts twice as long. Allies who pass through your sunspot are granted Soul Invictus and Solar Restoration. Maybe it's better for teammates and I just didn't realize it. But for what I used it for here, it did not go well. Did not really pair well with the weapon that the AI gave me either. But it is what it is. That's the whole point of this video, right? For the mods, the AI did choose to give me Innervation, which reduces grenade cooldown each time you pick up an orb of power, and then Invigoration, which reduces melee cooldown each time you pick up an orb of power. So we got a grenade and melee cooldowns every time you pick up an orb of power. And for the last one, I got to choose Recuperation, which replenishes health each time you pick up an orb of power. It's one of the best mods in the game. And finally, we're on to the Titan class item here. It only gave me 1 mod here, which was Outreach, reduces melee cooldown each time you use your class ability. However, I do have a Bomber mod on there, which reduces grenade cooldown when you're using your class ability, and then Distribution, which reduces all ability cooldowns when using your class ability near targets. So overall, we're going to be trying to chain our abilities left and right here, seeing what we can kind of build with this disgusting build. Lastly, I'm going to go over the weapons that AI chose or that I kind of improvised with. In the first slot, they really didn't recommend anything that I could actually put here, so I ended up using the Succession Sniper Rifle. I figured I would need a sniper rifle with the actual exotic weapon that they gave me, which is in the second slot. Of course, the AI chose to give me Sunshot. Its intrinsic trait here is going to be called Sunburn. This weapon fires explosive rounds and highlights targets that take damage from Sunshot. Also, it has a trait called Sunblast. Targets killed with Sunshot explode in solar energy. This gun was definitely fun to use because I don't really use it very often. However, in GMs, it wasn't all that great. I don't necessarily know if I would recommend somebody this. And speaking of not recommending an item, unfortunately, the heavy slot they gave me was going to be a sword. Out of the whole list of what it gave me, the sword just kind of made the most sense here. And for the sake of the video, I did want to kind of make it challenging. So there's probably a couple clips of me in there hitting somebody with a sword and then getting stomped and killed. This sword did have incandescent and it is a solar sword. However, I don't think that really mattered at all because I still got my ass whooped. Overall, I'm going to give you my review of the build. In GMs, it sucked. It was not fun to use. I felt like it wasn't very useful at all. Didn't give me really any helpful exotic that is popular for GMs, nor did it give me a weapon to really work with besides a hand cannon that shoots little flame balls out of it. Overall, would I trust AI to build me a end game build and just stop using my brain? No, absolutely not. Personally, I'd probably never do this again unless you guys really wanted me to. But realistically, this was an awful experience. I told my friends what I was going in with, and then they laughed at me. And then when I went to go for a sword kill or do damage at least on one of the bosses, I got stomped at and they laughed at me. And then every time I died and I said, wow, this build really sucks ass, they said, well, you did it to yourself. And I guess that is true, but the things you do for YouTube. If you enjoy this video at any time, make sure you leave a like, consider subscribing. We are on the road to, I guess, 4K subscribers now. So hop on board and ride the wave with us. I appreciate you guys' support and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.